Hi, it's going for 1 a.m. and I'm having terrible insomnia thinking about RFK Jr. Basically destroying the CDC and public health in the United States, but I don't want to be a downer. And I am really excited about the day when RFK Jr. faces accountability for what he's doing now, because he is a eugenicist. He is not only wholly unqualified to do what he's doing, he's extremely dangerous and he's harming a lot of people. But I just want to pivot for a second to this comment. Let's just bring the mood back up a little bit. Vance has negative aura. Him and Stephen Miller have the same amount of charisma. I completely agree, Alexi. And actually, your comment reminded me of something that Heather Cox Richardson said on her YouTube video today. She said, "I cannot imagine a more charmless politician than JD Vance." Yo, when she said that in her podcast today, I laughed so hard. It's so completely true. One of the things that I've really been encouraged about lately is not only Donald Trump's declining health, but the way that members of the regime realize that they're stuck with JD Vance next. That Trump has the dwindles, or maybe is on the edge of some precipitous decline, and they are going to be left with one of the most uncharismatic men in politics who is completely incapable of holding the cult of MAGA together, trying to cement a fascist regime in the United States at a point in time when Donald Trump, all on his own, has managed to tank his popularity across the board. The cult leader himself is becoming more and more and more unpopular. He is underwater on immigration, the economy, tariffs, Medicaid, definitely what he's doing with the military. There was polling out this week that, like, if you ask Americans about crime in the United States, right, they don't actually like what Donald Trump is doing. They understand that it is not combating crime. Their version, like the American people, our vision, our interpretation of what would help lower crime rates does not include our own members of the military being used against us. A military occupation of American cities is not anywhere on the radar of your average American. When you ask them, how would you like to reduce crime in your city? What do you think are some effective strategies for reducing crime in your city? I mean, the National Guard in Washington, D.C. is being sent to pick up trash, y'all. First of all, how disrespectful for our service members. They are being used as pawns in Trump's political games. They're just being used to intimidate their own neighbors. American citizens being used to threaten and intimidate other American citizens. And then they're not even doing anything meaningful or purposeful. Millions of dollars are being spent every week. I heard it was over $1 million a day in DC alone is being spent keeping the National Guard there. And all they're doing is picking up garbage and standing around. So Trump is already deeply unpopular. He's pissing off more and more people. More and more people are turning against the administration, and more people who are just maybe apathetic about it in the past, no, they're flaming pissed now. And I know that a lot of people have said, well, the reason that this shit hasn't been stopped yet is because enough people have not been harmed, right? People have to get angry or they have to be hurt more before they're willing to stand up and do anything. And I have said so many times, unfortunately, I think that may be true. I don't like that. I do not like that that's the reality, that it has to get worse before it can get better. But unfortunately, people have to get pissed off enough to want to do something about it. And we're reaching that point now where the resistance is growing, day by day by day. Public opposition against the regime is growing right at a time when Trump's health is declining. Pretty obvious, glaringly obviously. Everybody knows he's not doing well. And not just the bruising on the back of his hand, not just the cankles, not just the fact that he looks saggy and sallow, unkempt, right? It's not just the fact that he sits there with his eyes really squinty and he looks really tired, like he's falling asleep all the time. Sometimes he has been falling asleep in public. It's also the very apparent cognitive decline. He struggles to keep up with a conversation. He seems confused when he engages with other people. And even when they give him a script to go off of, he really has a hard time. And at that moment in history, when public opposition is growing dramatically, Trump's health is declining quickly, and the people behind him running the regime are like, oh shit, we are now going to reach a confluence of events where Trump is no longer going to be able to stay in power, either because he expires, because he's elderly and in bad health and his time is up, or because he becomes incapacitated because he's elderly and his health is bad. And then JD Vance will end up in charge. He will end up being the president. It's just sorry, I can hardly say it with a straight face. I can just imagine how much the guys behind Trump, like Stephen Miller, Russell Vogt, I can just imagine those guys are sweating bullets right now. Those guys are peeing in their pants about the fact that JD Vance is about to ascend to the presidency of the United States. For a couple of reasons, right? Heather says that it's really Stephen Miller and Russell Vogt who are kind of running the ship. They are really they're the brains behind the operation. And I'm pretty sure I agree with her on that. I've said for a while, I think Stephen Miller is definitely running things when it comes to ICE, foreign policy. I think he's running Marco Rubio. And I agree, Russell Vogt is probably the other person. And Heather's assessment of both of them is spot on. They also have no charisma. They have no political power that comes from the people. Donald Trump controls a huge cult. 70 plus million Americans in the cult of Donald Trump. MAGA is his cult. It's not JD Vance's cult, and it sure as fuck is not Russell Vogt's cult and Stephen Miller's cult. The Heritage Foundation does not have a cult. Knitting Cult Lady says that Donald Trump came and took their cult. I don't know if I even think they were a cult to begin with, but the folks who did follow Heritage Foundation, all those Hillsdale College graduates, all those white Christian nationalists, Donald Trump runs all of them. They're really in his cult. They do not have loyalty to JD Vance. And a lot of them are like LDS or evangelical. They're not Catholics. I don't know how they would feel about JD Vance, a Catholic. Oh, and by the way, they're white supremacists. JD Vance, a Catholic with a brown wife and brown kids. That group is not going to be loyal to JD Vance. They're not going to like him being in charge for a whole host of reasons that have nothing to do with the fact that he has no charisma. He is charmless. So, Heather was saying Miller and Vogt, they get their power through Donald Trump. He is the conduit through which they control the cult of MAGA. Without Donald Trump as the front man, as the face of that cult, Stephen Miller is not going to wield all of those people. Stephen Miller is repellent. There's a reason every time I talk about him, I get a gajillion comments being like, he's a literal ghoul. He is an evil man. He's a weasel. He's a ferret. Like, I just get a huge host of comments. And people don't even know who Russell Vogt is. These guys are not going to lead the cult. They know that JD Vance is going to have to be at the forefront. And they are sweating bullets over that fact. This regime is in probably the most precarious position it has been in thus far. Authoritarians, their regimes are always very fragile. They do not command the will of the people. They don't have the majority. They don't have a mandate from the people. And whatever popularity and backing from Americans the Trump regime had is slipping day by day by day, rapidly. The fact that Trump is trying so hard right now, well, the guys behind him are trying so hard right now to clamp down and to flex their authoritarian muscle. It's not even their muscle. They're just trying to make it look like it's their muscle. They're trying to put on a big show. It's a big bluff that they're big and powerful and they want you to hand over all of your power to them. It's really a desperate cope. They know that they are in a place where their grasp on power is more fragile than it's ever been. The regime could crumble at the drop of a hat. And so they're desperate to take away all of your rights, to scare the shit out of you, to scare you into submission, because they know that Donald Trump's days are numbered, and they know that JD Vance does not have the charisma to command you, to command the American people. I think they can really see that their days are numbered. I think they can see the future, and it is not a dictatorship run by JD Vance. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, I completely agree. Every time I think about JD Vance stepping into the presidency, I feel so much hope. Like, hope just surges within me because I know that he can't do it. There's no way.